What's up everyone and welcome back. I'm not at the moors at the moment, I'm actually in the garden, but I thought I'd share with you my top 5 camping tips. But before we get into it, hit that like, smash that subscribe, and let's roll that intro. Tip number 1, find a shelter that you're comfortable with. There are 3 means of shelters. You can opt for a tent, a tarp and bivvy, or a hammock. Now I haven't used a hammock or a tarp and bivvy, so I'm just going to roll in to the different types of tents you can get. If you're solo camping, then a 1 or 2 man tent will be plenty big enough for you. If you are going with a partner, then I would suggest maybe getting a 3 man tent, as you rarely find that you can fit 2 people in a 2 man tent. You might be able to, but it'll be a squeeze. As far as I'm aware, there are 3 types of structure. You can go for a dome tent, which tends to be heavier than the rest, but they do hold up very well in high winds, and you do tend to get a bit more room. You can go for a tunnel tent, which are considerably lightweight compared to the dome tents, but you do compromise on space, particularly headroom. And again, they are very good during the high winds due to their low profile, so they're pretty good for stealth camping. I haven't used this type of tent, but tents that utilize your trekking poles, they tend to be considerably lightweight, mainly because of you don't have to carry any additional tent poles. So if you are using trekking poles on your hike, then one of those may be beneficial. I have seen though that some people do struggle to put the tents up, mainly because if you don't get it tight enough, then your trekking pole is just going to fall over. Tip number 2, pack the basics. I'm going to list off a couple of basic items that you should take when wild camping on Dartmoor. A tent, a sleeping bag, a sleep mat, a cook set, a mug and spork, torch or a headlamp, spare clothes, waterproofs, trowel, compass and map, first aid kit, power bank, and a bag to put it all in. Obviously, food and drink is important, but you can kind of gauge what you need and how much of it you need, depending on how far you're going. Which takes me into my next tip. Tip number 3, plan and prepare. Dartmoor's ever-changing weather means that it's really important to plan for your trip ahead. Checking the weather ahead of time is probably a good idea. You can kind of gauge if you need any extras. For example, if you know it's going to be a cold night, then packing some extra base layers or even a thermal base layer for the night might be an idea. Again, if you know it's going to be wet and you're going to be traipsing through bogs and through some bits of water, then maybe taking an extra pair or 2 of socks might also be a good idea. If you've decided to hike around 10 miles to get to your camping spot, then you might want to consider taking some extra food and some extra drinks. And you might also want to consider packing a bit lighter. So I've got an 85-litre backpack, and I've realised that it's way too big for me. I since then bought a 50-litre backpack, and I can get all of that same equipment in that bag. I tend to find that you pack to the size of your bag, so maybe using a smaller bag will help you cut out the less important items. Although it isn't necessary, I do like to scout out for a location before I do set up camp. It takes out a lot of the stress, knowing that I found a location that is suitable for me. Ideally, you want to be camping on flat level ground away from bogs, maybe pitching up next to a stream or a river for an additional water source. And if you know the weather's going to be bad ahead of time, then scouting a location where you know you're going to be sheltered from the elements is also probably a good idea. If you head over to the Dartmoor Wild Camping website, they do have an interactive map where it shows you all of the locations where you are actually permitted to camp. Tip number 4, follow the rules and be respectful. To avoid being a knob, then you should always adhere to the Dartmoor Wild Camping rules, and you can find these on the Dartmoor Wild Camping website. And they are: travel light. You should always use lightweight equipment that fits easily into your backpack, so no big family tents, and staying for a maximum of 1 or 2 nights for your journey. Stay out of sight. Use small and lightweight tents that blend into your surroundings. Stay out of sight from roads and buildings, and no more than 6 people in your group. Tread lightly, so no open fires or barbecues. Take your rubbish home. Bury your poo and your used toilet paper. Do not pollute streams or rivers, and please do not disturb the wildlife. So please do not be one of those campers that ruins it for the rest of us. Tip number 5, stay safe. Dartmoor is a beautiful place, but you do have to be very, very cautious when out on it. Most of it is common sense, but there are a lot of people out there that do lack common sense. Therefore, I would suggest maybe that you tell someone of your location that you're going to and the route you plan to take, just in case there is an emergency, and they can point the emergency services to your location. If your camping spot falls within any of the military zones, then checking the live firing times ahead is really a good idea. You can find that on the .gov website, or just type into Google Dartmoor military firing times, and you should find out what days they're firing. I think they post them around 28 days prior, so you have plenty of time. It's also advised that if you do find any shrapnel or military debris lying about whilst out camping, that you leave it well alone, because you never know, it could explode. Make sure you have enough charge on your phone or on your power bank. If your phone is running low on battery, then maybe turning it onto power saver mode is a good idea. And lastly, do not take any unnecessary risks. The last thing anyone wants you to do is hurt yourself. And the emergency services obviously do not want to be climbing up to the tors of Dartmoor in the dark to help you when it could have all been avoided by just being sensible. So that's it. Hopefully this video has been a bit more informative than our previous ones. I'll let you decide. But if I have forgotten anything, or I may have gotten something wrong, please let us know in the comments, because we're still new to this, relatively new. So it's always good to keep learning. Thanks for watching, and I will see you at Fernsworthy Reservoir, I believe.